9/11 because
Ah,
Concorde relied on business customers,
right.
and something like 70 or 80% of Concorde's business customers were killed on 9/11.
Wow.
Um, so
Um,
it wiped out their main stream of income. So that was a tragedy. But in fact, the actual aeroplane, they started to design it at the end, I believe, of the 1950s, and then mainly in the 60s, based on I can't think of the name of the aircraft, but an RAF military plane, the Delta Wing plane.
yeah.
But it was a most amazing invention, such that even if it was, I mean, of course, they're around the country now and, in museums and things like that.
Yeah.
And they still look way before their time. I mean, they still look modern, more modern than any current airliner. But the fact that they could put it through the sound barrier and
Yeah.
have about 108 people on it was something they had to overcome so many barriers, so many hurdles to do that. And to get the balance of the machine, they would pump the fuel around the aircraft to change its weight and its center of gravity.
Yeah.
But it was an incredible invention, possibly one of humankind's greatest, most clever things to do, that you can safely fly civilians, you know, 60,000 feet. I remember seeing when I was up there, it said 60,000 feet, Mach 2, which was about 1,350 miles an hour,
Yeah.
which is faster than the rifle bullet. And it was an incredible experience. And I mean, just to sort of say about that,
Yeah.
I was in the plane for, or we were in the plane for about 2 hours 15 minutes. It was linked to a cruise, the first ever cruise I did,
Yeah.
and so we were flying down to the south of Spain. So we went down to the West Country and then down through the Bay of Biscay and so on. And it was scheduled to be about an hour and 50 minutes, but
Right.
as we were lining up at Heathrow that morning, I can still remember it very clearly. The captain came on and he said, "Well, he said, welcome to Concorde." He said, "We're actually fifth in line." He said, "So we'll have a little wait here."
Yeah.
He said, "But you'll find this takeoff very different from anything you've experienced before." And then he said, "Oh, wait, no, air traffic controller just said we can be first in line because all the other planes, like the pilots, had to want to show their passengers Concorde
Yeah.
taking off. So he said, we're going
Wow.
right to the front." So
Wow.
we did. But he said it's more like a rocket taking off. He said it'll be very steep. And of course, Concorde took off at about 260 miles an hour, whereas most planes, they take off at about 150. So it's a much faster. And yeah, the takeoff run, I mean, you were pinned back in your seats. And then,
Wow.
when it took off, the angle of climb was something else. It was really incredible. And then they sort of cut the noise, so you don't really hear it. You feel the noise more than hear it. Um, and the climb was just incredible. And I remember over the sea, you could see cruise ships and things like that. And we were, well, what are you, 10, 12, 11, 12 miles up, 60
Wow.
odd thousand feet. And then when he said, "Right, we're now going to go supersonic," he said, "I've only got to push two little switches." He said, "You'll feel two nudges in your back."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you felt. And then it built up speed. It sort of doubled its speed. So it was an incredible experience. And anyway, to conclude that, we were coming into land at this place in southern Spain,
Yeah.
and it was a lovely sunny day. So it was perfect conditions. It was early in the morning. We took off about 8 o'clock at Heathrow, so it was about 2 hours, 10 o'clock ish when we were coming down to land.
Yeah.
And I think it may have been the co-pilot this time. He was counting down. He said, "Right, we're down to 20,000 feet, and then 19," and he was talking about the flight we'd had because we were all allowed to go and look at the flight deck as well. I mean, we
Wow.
were right at the front, my
Yeah.
partner and I, and so we could, and they'd kept the door open. It's before 9/11. You could see what they were doing. Anyway,
Yeah.
you then counted down, it got down to 10,000 feet, and you could feel the plane dropping and getting fairly steep on its angle. Then it was 9, 8, 7, got down to 5,000, and then a bit of a gap, but then carried on 4,000, and people sort of looking out. The windows are tiny on Concorde, but you're sort of peering out there, seeing what's what. And it's quite a small plane. It's not like the wide body planes we go on.
You know.
Anyway, got down to 1,000,
Yeah.
and then it went quiet. I mean, he went quiet, and no one was alarmed because I thought, well, he's obviously 1,000 feet. You look out, couldn't really see much because it was hazy. It was very sunny, but it was
Right.
very hazy. And and then it was a couple of minutes later, really, but suddenly, talk about two prods in the back,
Yeah.
you felt this enormous surge of power,
Wow.
and the angle of the plane changed, and suddenly we were zooming up. And I
Whoa.
mean, people looked at each other. I mean, I can't describe the power. It was like being on a rocket.
Wow.
Nothing came from the cockpit. I sort of tried to peer because we were in the front. I could
Yeah.
just see them obviously doing a go around, basically.
Wow.
And I think it was. I think I said at the time, I wish I'd taken some spare underwear with me because it kind of. Sorry if that's a bit rude, but it kind of everyone was just looking at each other. What's going on? And anyway, after a couple of minutes, it was quite a long couple of minutes. He said, "Oh, nothing, no problem." He said, um, "British Airways has a policy that if we can't see the runway at 1,000 feet, we're not allowed to land." He said, "It's very sunny." He said, "But it's very hazy, so we're going up again." He said, "Look at it that you've got another 20, 25 minutes on the plane," which we did.
Yeah.
He said, "What we'll do, we'll go round, go out over the sea, and
Yeah.
then come back in the other way because hopefully to avoid the haze."
Yeah.
Well, it was a 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and we then were coming down again, but the sun was still on the same side, so we we're obviously coming in the same way. And
Yeah.
then we landed without a problem. It was just a perfect landing. You didn't really feel you were touching the ground. But yeah, that Concorde flight was something I'm so pleased because so many people have said that it was something they always wanted to do,
Yeah.
but of course the rug was ripped away from us because of all the issues of 9/11 and of course the crash in France.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great experience. But to come back to your original question, I think you go a long way to find a better, more clever invention in
Yeah.
every way than
Wow.
Concorde.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the way that you've explained it, it's like the plane is showing off.
Well, yeah, it is a remarkable aeroplane.
Wow.
Military people first of all went through the sound barrier. I don't know when that was. Possibly, I don't know, after the war. Or, I don't know, but some people, a lot of military test pilots were killed because when they went through the sound barrier, their planes broke up. And so the Concorde designers had to learn, and they actually shaped the front of the Delta wings in
Yeah.
such a way, and you can see it if you look at it,
Yeah.
in such a way that it cut out that effect that actually caused the plane to break up.
Yeah.
So they had to build the whole thing in a different way, and it was a completely single bonded airframe. There's no
Wow.
gaps in it at all. But the interesting thing is when it gets supersonic, it gets so hot that the aircraft expands by about 8 inches. It's hard to
Wow.
believe. And on
Wow.
one of the ones that British Air, the one I went on actually, they've got that at Heathrow still.
Yeah.
And on its last flight back, it was GBOAF, which is the one I was on. The
Wow.
captain put his cap while they were slowing down in the gap, so that by the time they landed, his
Yeah.
hat is jammed in because there's an 8 inch gap went back down to what it should be.
Yeah.
So his cap is forever
Wow.
jammed into this Concorde. But 8 inches, they actually stretch, and of course the metal had to be had to allow for that stretch to happen. So it's indescribable
Wow.
the technical cleverness, brilliance of Concorde's designers.
Wow.
Quite amazing.
Well, I'm not topping that now. There's no way I can top that. So I think I think it's a great uh, topic to end the show on, don't you think?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So I've been Emmy Hikins, and
I've been Trevor Gear.
yeah, and you've been listening to the Alien Spaceship. Join us same time next week for another episode of the Alien Spaceship. It's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
Yeah, thank you. Right, so
I
yeah.
nearly said, and it's bye from him.